My name is Carolyn Delaney. I'm the founder and CEO here at Journey Enterprises. We're a media company on a mission to make recovery from addiction visible because it's important. It saves lives. There are over 26 million of us in recovery, and we want those who are still sick and suffering to know that there's a path for them. There's millions of us here on the other side of active addiction, and that it's probable that people can and do recover. Our videos share personal, intimate stories of what people's journeys were like, going from what it was like to what happened to what it's like now, in an effort to let people know that we're here, we care, and that there's a way out. Visible recovery saves lives, and we want the world to know that. So if you have a story about recovery and would like to share it, please contact me, Carolyn at recovery-journey.com. I hope you enjoy our videos. Have a great day.
Addiction is something that has followed me for 20 years. And it wasn't until 2019 that I got freedom. And it started for me when I was a kid. You know, as kids, we experience some things because we're children and we don't understand what it's like to live in an adult world. And to have to make an adult decision and what those decisions mean and how they affect other people and how they affect us. I dealt with some pretty severe family stuff when I was at a young age. Some pretty traumatic stuff. My mom struggled with some mental health issues, some things that I witnessed firsthand that were very troubling for me, which made me struggle with my mental health issues at a very young age. Just at an age of 12, you know, I struggled with my mental health. I had a suicide attempt. I decided if life was so hard to live that I was going to find a way to make it better, and if it brought me any closer to the end of my life, then I was probably doing something right at that point. I used drugs and alcohol and I just, whatever I consumed emotionally, I consumed through my use. And it kept me numb for a good many years. I never really focused on all the internal damage and things that it was doing. I got married for the wrong reasons. I made poor choices, you know, but I have a beautiful daughter. One of the greatest gifts that I have because of recovery today is have the ability to be a present father. Everything happened as a result of my addiction. Everything happened as a result of my untreated, trauma, my untreated mental health, parent issues, family issues, just issues with relationships and in general. And until I came into, recovery, I obviously chose a path because the pain got great enough. It took me almost losing everything in my life, and my health was very, very bad. So I had to make a decision. But when I made the decision, once I took the drugs away and was able to become abstinent, things became more clear. And then me, you know, I chose to recover. I didn't use, I wasn't on replacement therapy. I didn't do anything like that. I just got up one day and said enough is enough. And through my own willpower, which some days was hard, was harder than others, I was able to give it up. So obviously I chose a 12-step program to recover from. And it's one of the most beautiful things that I found in my life. Not only has it given me freedom from active addiction, but it's also given me freedom from all those things that I used to struggle with as a little boy. It taught me at that turning point when you stop acting like a boy and you start acting like a grown up. Once I came into recovery, I had to make the hard decision that some people have to make, and I had to leave a marriage. I learned to develop a relationship, the power greater than myself, a connection to something greater than this world. I think that's really what everybody is looking for here in these troubled times, not only with addiction, but everything that's going on in the world today is just a little bit of hope. Once I was able to come into the program and to gain a little bit of time, to put a little bit of time together and start looking at some things that were wrong with my life, that was a little bit of freedom for me. And I got a little bit of hope that being people who struggle with addiction, because addiction is very much instant gratification. We're used to things happening a certain way. We're used to things happening on our will. So developed a relationship with a power greater than myself. And I believe recovery to me is using all of those terms in toolboxes and everything that I've learned in my 12-step program and applying it to every principle in my life, not just my addiction. Through doing that, I met the love of my life this year, and I got married, and it's a blessing. I've had to overcome some unspeakable things. I am a veteran. So in August, I was diagnosed with cancer, and one of the most amazing things that comes with the gifts of recovery is you gain the ability to feel, and you gain the ability to be present and listen. It's a double-edged sword. It cuts on both sides. So it's a very difficult situation to manage, especially being somebody who has to take sobriety and recovery into account. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle because there's a lot of mental things that you go through, and there's a lot of physical things I'm going through as far as pain and things like that. And for this time like that I have now, I'm just trying to manage my journey with my family and this cancer that I have. It's a struggle, but through programs, through all of the clarity and things that I've gained in my life, and through the beauty of having a clear mind, life is pretty manageable. I've learned to live this spiritual life, and that's one of the most beautiful things. I was always missing something I seeked inside of myself as I came into this program, and to came into recovery. And it's given me a new breath on life, and it gives me purpose. It's something I was taught early on in the program. It's when you first come into recovery, when you first come in, you try to take things a day at a time. There's good days and learning days. So I try to live to that the best of my ability, and I try to see the message in places that I need to see it. It's freedom, and it's not just freedom from grips of addiction. It's the freedom to make choices. It's the freedom to live and not survive. The ultimate reprieve, to be able to take a giant breath and still be able to maintain and go through all these things on a daily basis that everybody goes through, and still be able at the end of the day to say, okay, all right, did this okay, really screwed up here, could have done this better. It's this constant system of checks and balances that you need to have for yourself. Sometimes in our recovery process, people don't understand, and they don't understand what it looks like for us to go through our process, and that's a hard thing. When I first came into recovery, that's what they told me to avoid: people, places, and things. Take the old ones, people, places, and things, get rid of them, and get new ones. You surround yourself with people, places, and things that help you. In some ways, I really feel like the gift of recovery is the gift of relationships. It's the gift of building relationships. Okay. Building relationships with ourselves. It's building relationships with other people. For me today, I get to do it as a dad, and I get to do it as a husband, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to live my process and to live my life, and to be able to give the gift of something to other people. I would not trade this life for anything, because it has given me so many beautiful things. But I think the most beautiful thing is it's given me myself back. One of the most beautiful things that you gain when you come into recovery is you get a new family. You get a new family. You really do, because it's a close-knit community, and it's a group of people, and we can only understand ourselves, and we can only understand each other. One of the most beautiful things is being able to have enough love for yourself to see those things, and to have enough love for yourself to love other people, and to help other people through their process. I wouldn't be where I am if somebody didn't give it to me, so I want to give it to somebody else just the same.
As a really young child, I just remember I was just so uncomfortable in myself, so uncomfortable in my own skin. And I did experience some abuse as a child, which I think really did impact my life. And then just kind of that feeling of just not feeling comfortable in myself, not feeling comfortable in my own skin continued through. And when I hit middle school and high school, it just kind of like, it got worse. I first started using alcohol at age 9. I would kind of go in my parents', liquor cabinet, and I would just dump a little bit of everything into a bottle. And really from the beginning, I would drink to blackout most times. When I hit middle school and high school, I started to get into other substances, and really I think what drew me to them was just that relief that I would feel from that experience of feeling really uncomfortable inside myself. I did pretty well in school, and I actually went to a private boarding school with a scholarship when I was in my freshman year in high school. And that was really kind of when things started to change for me. I developed an eating disorder, and I was really like excessively exercising, and I ended up getting really depressed, and I came home to finish high school for my junior and senior year. And around that time was also when things kind of deepened for me with my addiction, and I found narcotics. And then my senior year, I barely graduated, and almost right after I graduated, I packed my car full of my stuff, and I just hit the road on Phish tour. So I was following this band Phish all around, and that was for 2 years. I was just that kind of free spirit way of being, which I appreciated, but it came for me at a huge cost. When I started to use heroin, it became, none of it was really just kind of free spirited, like what I was just talking about, like all of that kind of dissolved, and it just became about maintaining and sustaining the experience of being high. And that just kind of continued to, I kind of continued to get deeper and deeper and farther over my head with that. Until actually, something changed for me. I was in my early 20s, and I had been in and out of detox a bunch of times in one summer, and the doctor at the detox just told me, you're gonna die, like you need something else. And he suggested methadone, and so I did go to the methadone clinic. And that was a shift for me because it got me out of that using world where I needed to do everything to sustain and maintain my habit. And it allowed me to get a little more ground underneath my feet. I met a man and became pregnant with my first child, and I was still on methadone. And so my first child was born on methadone. My husband was driving home from work one day, and he heard about this treatment called Ibogaine on This American Life with Ira Glass. And it was in clinical trial. So I did go through that experience, which again, it helped me transition off methadone, but I still hadn't gone deep enough inside myself to really connect with like the root causes of like what laid that foundation in the beginning. It was really hard for me to make that decision to go to the methadone clinic. It was a really painful decision to make on a lot of levels. I think one, because there was really a stigma then, and I believe personally that there very much still is a stigma. I heard things about it like, that it's liquid handcuffs, and if you go on methadone, you're never going to get off. I was actually sick enough in my addiction that I couldn't just pull myself out of it. Accepting that I needed, and making the decision to take methadone and go to the clinic, it felt like I was accepting that on a deeper level, how sick I actually was. For me, deciding to go to the methadone clinic was really about picking life, deciding that I really wanted to live.
What was your experience being pregnant on MAT?
Again, it was really hard just because of the stigma. I felt like I was treated differently right from the beginning. The first time that I walked into the doctor's office, there was just this assumption that I didn't care, that I didn't care about my child, that I didn't care about myself. I was just someone with addiction, and that was it. This pregnancy wasn't planned. I really wanted to have this baby, and which was hard because a lot of people in my life, a lot of people I was close to seemed to just like not even entertain the possibility of me having the baby. I think for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of purpose that I had never experienced before. And I had this drive to really care for myself in a different way. And actually my life kind of became all about being pregnant. I just really was so excited to have him. I do think methadone kept me alive. I really had this desire to get off of it. I wanted, something different. So my husband heard about this on This American Life about Ibogaine. Some weeks after that, I was on a plane to Mexico. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, Ibogaine, it's a hallucinogenic, so they don't allow it here. It was an incredibly meaningful experience for me. It really, and it did help me transition. It actually did help me get off of methadone. Not very easily, and it was still a very uncomfortable experience physically. But I did get off of it. But what I found after is and I believe very much, is that there just is no such thing as a silver bullet. There wasn't for me. There's never in my journey been just this one thing that I would just take or do that was just going to solve everything. And what was there was that same restlessness and discomfort inside myself that I had felt ever since I can imagine. I had to learn how to live with that. I had some setbacks, which were really hard. And then I went to treatment, and I was away for 8.5 months from my son. But ultimately, it was through that experience that I did find lasting recovery. I have a degree of peace and comfort inside myself that I just really never, ever, ever, ever would have thought could have been possible for somebody like myself. I love how Lisa Silverman says it. She says that she has this eclectic approach to recovery, and that resonates with me, because I have a similar type of recovery where really this December will be my 13th year anniversary, December 28th. My recovery is this evolving experience where I have many, many different tools and many different practices and things that I do in order to take care of myself. 13 years later, I've never felt like I've gotten to the top of the recovery mountain and I've planted my flag in the top and I've just arrived somewhere. To me, that's not what recovery is. Recovery is, it's a process of change. I have done a lot of hard work. I've done years and years of therapy and all different sorts of programs. I have a very rich spiritual life. I just feel like there's a sacredness in kind of every moment. And that's the place that I really work on living from, as much as possible. I see recovery as an intensely personal process. There's no right or wrong answers. There's just what works or what doesn't for each individual person at a given time. I wouldn't have my 3 children. I wouldn't have the beautiful, challenging life that I have if it hadn't been for methadone. I just think that whatever helps somebody change and grow and live a more meaningful life, and helps them strive to reach their full potential, whatever that is. And if it's a medication, if it's a program, whatever it is valuable.
I think for many people, MAT it keeps them above ground. It keeps them in their families. It keeps them functioning. It keeps them at work over a long period of time. It's just so incredibly important not to shame people because they do, that does keep them from getting better.
It seems like there's just these floodgates of judgment that kind of get unleashed on people. If you're somebody who takes medication, for years in order to support your recovery, that's real recovery. That's valuable. If it helps you engage in a process of meaningful change in your life, if it helps you, grow in meaningful ways, if it helps you show up to your life so you can be there both for yourself first and then for others, that is such an incredible gift, and it's so important that we recognize that within our community as valid recovery.
Okay, so my name is Bobby. I am in long-term recovery. Just about 3.5 years clean, no drugs. I started using it at 14. I started right with heroin. I started right with a syringe. First time with my father. Immediately was a daily user. Living in Massachusetts with my dad, we were in a lot of trouble. He ended up getting arrested and going to prison, and I had to come back to Maine to live with my mother. Pills were available to me pretty easily, whether it be through my mom or my brother. So instead of heroin, I started using pills every day for a few years, and then heroin came back. I've been to prison 3 times, using in jail, using in prison. Things got pretty bad when I had to ask my mother to help me get into a detox. I was sent to Florida, to a rehab in Florida, where I did pretty well, and I started learning how to kind of fake my way through treatment. I got pretty good at the literature. I got pretty good at putting my hand up and feeding people what I thought they wanted to hear. And when I came through, the chief of police from Sanford was in there and just really wanted to help me. He wanted me to get on Suboxone, and that he would personally pay for it, because he didn't want me to die. But I was doing pretty well, and I would go to take my urine tests, and I would come up completely clean, with no Suboxone in my system. So they thought I was selling it. So I wasn't on probation anymore, so there was nobody chasing me. I had overdosed again, and my arm was pretty infected. I was in pretty bad shape. I was probably like 130 pounds. So I called the same counselor that I had through the Suboxone program, and it was my 22nd time going through there. So that everybody knew me pretty well, and that they were gonna get together and come up with a plan for me. And she came in the next day, and she had a plan. She said, "We got you 6 months of treatment at the Serenity House. I want you to do 90 meetings in 90 days. I want you to join a volunteer group. And then after your 90 days, I want you to come back and speak at the detox." I had had enough, so instead of doing the 90 meetings in 90 days, I did 210. I did 3 a day, every day. I didn't miss anything. I did everything everybody told me to do. I joined a group called Bridging the Gap, who goes into the detox every Saturday, and they give, they let you know no matter where you land after detox, you could go to California and we'll find you a sober contact. I got a sponsor right away. I went through the 12 steps. I took 2 other guys through the 12 steps. Service work works better for me. So I kept going to Milestone and asking for a job for 8 months. I'm about to move out in 2 weeks, but I've been on the property since I started. So I think working in that place shows me like what would happen if I go back. I think working there has been a big part of me staying sober. So what this looks like now is 3.5 years clean. I'm getting married. Peer support specialist, Narcan trainer. Moving into my own house in 2 weeks, which I never thought would happen. Haven't had a license in 10 years. I was just able to pay all of that off. I just got to take the test. I can have the license back. It's pretty awesome that I can take somebody who was just as bad as me or worse and help them get into detox, help them get into treatment and sober living. And it seemed impossible in the beginning for me. Yeah, it seemed like this was so far away.
What do you say to them in detox now? Like when they've been like, oh, I'll never get it. I've been here 17 times, whatever. What do you tell them? Because I know that they say shit like that to you.
When I talk to them in the living room, in the day room up there, I'm like, okay, so you're sitting in my seat, by the way. I used to sit there on my 21st time here, my 22nd time here. So, dude, if I can get off the couch, you can. Like,
Nice.
if I can do it, you can do it.
Nice. That's
So,
awesome.
and some guys have done it. I lost my brother to an overdose. But the whole house came together, and you know they put this plan together so that I could go home for the day. And then the Journey House in Sanford, those guys came together when I got there, and you know met me at my mother's house. Like all these people got together, so I wasn't able to mess up. So there was a bunch of people are here, man. They'll help you out. They asked me to join the board of directors for the Journey House. I was like, really? Are you sure? So then when I sat in on the first meeting and I didn't feel like I fit in, and the guy Rob was like, that's why we want you.
Yeah.
Because you know things that we don't. Instead of doing meditation and all that other stuff, I draw.
Right.
So I can sit down with a sketch pad for about 10 hours and just listen to music and draw. So I was asked to do some portraits of people who either helped with homelessness or helped in recovery who have passed away. And I was asked if I would be willing to do a poster of Jesse Harvey, and that's how I ended up on the board of directors for the Journey House.
So you're getting married and all that. What is that looking like? How's that going?
And I'm gonna move in 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
We're pretty stoked. So,
That's awesome.
and I'm not scared of getting married. We don't lie, we don't cheat. Everything's
Real.
it's pretty, yeah, it's normal. So I do like a mentorship now,
Yeah.
where I'll meet with guys once or twice a week, and I'll do one guy at a time. I'll spend as long as he needs, a few months, a year, whatever.
Right.
Just hang out with the guy and just give him advice.
Be a good role model kind of thing.
Yeah, and it starts off like either I meet him in the shelter, I meet him in detox, or he gets a hold of me somehow, and then we'll just go out for coffee, and it turns into this other great thing.
Well, awesome. I appreciate it so much. This is my first interview one on here too, so it's so cool. Like my first interview, you know what I mean? It's just
No kidding.
yeah, it's like full circle.